In the known universe, there is an unimaginable number of stars. That is a number with 22 zeros. Pretty grandiose, right? But right here on Earth, there's an object that we manufacture in quantities far exceeding the total number of stars in space. And that is the insulated-gate field effect transistor, the MOSFET. To this day, humanity has fabricated over 13 sextillion of them. It is the most mass-produced object ever created by human hands. It is the invisible Leviathan upon which our entire modern civilization rests. And it is highly ironic that this Leviathan can be killed by a single wrong movement of your hand, or by a tiny static discharge that you did not even feel. We produce them by the trillions, yet we still do not really know how to read the instructions for them. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the High SNR channel. Tell me honestly, do you actually read the introductory section of a datasheet, or do you immediately scroll down to the tables? This document really needs to be read in its entirety, right down to the very last period. Some manufacturers even publish application notes on how to properly read their datasheets. So, let us try to read through some MOSFET datasheets together. Get ready. It will be somewhat unclear and confusing at times, and occasionally quite unexpected. Let's go. Section 1. The secret language of datasheets. Reading between the lines. Component manufacturers often warn us in plain text, right in the most prominent places, usually in the general description or in the legal disclaimer. One manufacturer writes in very clear English. While certain parameters are obvious and extremely accurate, others may be ambiguous at best, and some can, at times, be completely useless. Another adds a strict condition. All operating parameters, including typical parameters, must be validated for each customer application by the customer's own technical experts. Or it might say this: because of the large volume of information that a datasheet provides, it is sometimes considered a complex and difficult document to fully comprehend. Moreover, critically important parameters can very often be overlooked. How are we supposed to understand the manufacturer? What exactly are they trying to explain to us about their own products? Personally, I translate it like this. The numbers in the tables are great, but if you do not understand the underlying physics of the processes, those numbers are simply useless. Today, we are going to conduct an investigation. In this video, our main suspect is the drain-to-source breakdown voltage, a parameter that seems like a simple, absolute constant, right up until it starts drifting due to temperature changes or an inductive voltage spike. Section 2. The myth of breakdown voltage. Why measurement conditions are far more important than the numbers themselves. We open the datasheet. First page, large, bold font, the brand logo, and a solid number, 100 volts. In the text, this parameter is called Vdss. As any experienced engineer already knows, we must face a hard truth. The very first page is pure marketing material. The manufacturer is quite honest about this. It is just for an initial introduction, while the real data for your calculations must be looked for further down, in the characteristics tables. All right, let us move further into the document. In the absolute maximum ratings section, we do not find anything resembling this. That is a little bit surprising. However, in the electrical characteristics section, we finally find something similar, but now it is under a completely different name, Vdss, which stands for breakdown voltage. We have previously learned that in this specific table, we must pay very close attention to what is specified in the measurement conditions column. In the conditions column, it is written, the breakdown is recorded when the gate to source voltage equals exactly 0 volts. This means the gate is strictly tied to the source, and the drain current is set to 250 microamps. Let us try to understand what this actually means for us in practice. If your gate driver in the off state is just floating in the air, or if it has a high output impedance and a very fast voltage transient hits the drain terminal, then, through the parasitic capacitance, the gate voltage can actually be pulled up. And when that happens, you get a parasitic turn-on of the channel instead of a true breakdown event. As a result, the transistor begins to heat up in a state where it was supposed to be completely shut off. Therefore, if you did not properly ensure a solid 0 volts on the gate, that 100 volt specification loses absolutely all of its practical meaning. Section 3. The cold paradox. Why freezing temperatures will kill a MOSFET much faster than overheating. We are all very accustomed to fighting against overheating. We use massive heat sinks, cooling fans, thermal paste, and so on. But silicon MOSFETs have a very specific inherent property. They possess a positive temperature coefficient for their breakdown voltage. In practical terms, this means that the colder the silicon die gets, the lower its breakdown voltage becomes. Just imagine, you designed a circuit with a 10% safety margin. In the laboratory, at plus 25 degrees Celsius, everything works perfectly. Then, the device is deployed into an unheated outdoor enclosure, where the ambient temperature drops down to minus 30 degrees Celsius. At that precise moment, the rated breakdown voltage of 100 volts shifts downwards. And the very first standard voltage transient on the power rail, which was completely safe before, now suddenly becomes fatal. The transistor snaps into avalanche breakdown, not because your circuit design is bad, but simply because the weather outside got severely cold. The recommendation here is quite simple. You must carefully look at the graph showing the temperature dependence of the breakdown voltage, specifically in the region of sub-zero temperatures. That is exactly where your real safety margin truly lies. But let us suppose a voltage spike did, in fact, punch through your protection limits. What happens then? Let us figure it out. Section 4. The fatal error in EAS ratings. How the square of the current literally evaporates the silicon die. So, the inevitable finally happened, a breakdown event. The transistor has transitioned into avalanche breakdown mode. In datasheets, this is very often presented as a positive feature, proudly labeled as avalanche rated. It sounds extremely reliable, almost like an insurance policy. Do not deceive yourself, though. The avalanche regime is not a standard operating condition, and the survival capabilities here are severely limited. The most critical parameter to watch out for is the single pulse avalanche energy. Many engineers just look at the raw number in joules and think, oh, great, it can withstand a massive hit of 700 millijoules. The crucial nuance here is that this energy rating is normalized for a very specific test inductance, and much more importantly, for a specific peak current. Just take a close look at the energy formula. Did you notice the square of the current in that equation? I will say it again, the square of the current. If your actual avalanche current in the circuit ends up being higher than the datasheet's test current, that exact same amount of energy will be dumped into the silicon die at a drastically faster rate. This leads to intense localized overheating, followed by a catastrophic thermal breakdown. The silicon will quite literally evaporate at the point of impact. Because of this, you should never trust just a single solitary number. Instead, search the datasheet for the graph plotting maximum avalanche energy versus temperature. There, you will see several distinct curves plotted for different currents. The higher the avalanche current and the hotter the crystal gets, the significantly less energy it is actually capable of absorbing without complete destruction. If your specific operating point happens to fall above that safe curve, the transistor simply will not survive the transient event, regardless of how many millijoules the main characteristics table originally promised you. Section 5. The SOA boundary. The exact moment you lose control over the transistor. Let us examine the graph for the safe operating area, commonly known as SOA. As designers, we all love to focus on the continuous direct current lines and the thermal limits located on the left side of the chart. But I want you to look closely at the far right section of that graph. Exactly where those current lines suddenly drop off, with a harsh vertical line. That represents the absolute boundary of the drain-to-source breakdown voltage, Vdss. When operating to the left of that vertical line, you are effectively controlling the transistor using applied physics. However, the moment you cross to the right of that line, fundamental physics completely takes over the transistor, entirely without your participation. As soon as your operating point crosses over that strict boundary, the avalanche breakdown mechanism is immediately triggered. From that millisecond onward, the current flow is no longer restricted by the MOSFET channel itself. It is only limited by the impedance of your external circuit. Stepping past that right-hand boundary of the safe operating area is always a dangerous lottery, usually with a very bad outcome. Either your transient event fits perfectly within the incredibly strict limits of UIS, which stands for unclamped inductive switching, or you will end up with a permanently melted silicon die. When it comes to designing robust power electronics, true reliability is essentially the art of strictly avoiding any approach toward that dangerous boundary. So here is our final reliability checklist. Let us summarize the key takeaways of this video and compile everything into one convenient list. Number 1. Ensure a hard zero. The gate driver must confidently and firmly hold the gate potential to the source potential when in the off state. A floating gate is an open invitation for a parasitic turn-on event, rather than a predictable breakdown. Number 2. The cold factor. You absolutely must verify the breakdown voltage rating at the absolute minimum operating temperature of your system. If your safety margin disappears completely at -40 degrees Celsius, you need to select a different transistor with a higher rating, or integrate a transient voltage suppressor. Number 3. Total energy is definitely not everything. Do not let yourself be fooled by the single pulse avalanche energy specification. You must always cross-reference it with the avalanche current graphs. A very fast transient strike carrying a massive peak current will instantly kill the transistor, even if the total deposited energy was relatively low. Number 4, stay as far away from the boundary as possible. That extreme right-hand vertical boundary on the SOA chart is not merely a recommendation, it is a strict law of physics. Crossing it is only theoretically permissible within the rigidly defined specifications of unclamped inductive switching, and absolutely not one fraction of an amp more. And with that, the first part of our deep dive into datasheet analysis comes to a close. I sincerely hope that the next time you see a bold 100-volt rating, you will skeptically narrow your eyes and immediately start searching for the temperature dependency graphs. Always design your circuits with a solid safety margin, and never forget to read the fine print. Until next time.